Hello Simmers and welcome to my first ever speed build video. Today we're building a modern villa with some Moroccan style inspiration for spice. And here you can see I've already started building before I even hit record. This was just an error on my part. I was just in a silly goofy mood. So you can see it's a fairly big house. I'm taking inspiration, or I'm really trying to recreate an already existing house. I will link down below the house in question. There's a video, and that's all I had to go from. So I don't have any like blueprints of the house really, so I just had to do my best to recreate what I saw in this video. And I did my best to get the essence of this house that I used for inspiration into this build. However, there are some limitations, you know, within The Sims, so I can't make it completely to scale or correctly, because I only have the stuff that The Sims 4 gives me to work with. For example, these outside little ponds here, in the original house, or the original build in the real world, there were some like planters in the middle of the water, but I couldn't really get that in there without making everything a lot bigger, or without making it a lot more complex. I did try at some point to see if it could be possible, but it ended up just not functioning, so it's just water instead. And here you can see that I'm moving the house or the building around a bit so that I can get more space for both the building and also the garden in a way that makes sense. As I said before, I did end up moving the entire build to a different space where I had better space for everything. But I think I got the basis down before I moved it, at least, and that gave me more opportunity to see what I was doing, at least. And here you can see I'm just setting up, you know, a bit of furniture within the entrance. It was really to see whether or not this size of the house actually fit the idea of the house, the concept. And it didn't really, so here you can see I've moved it to a bigger lot. And here you can see I am making the building just a little bit bigger, just step by step getting like the right feel of the house. And I ended up making this like entranceway bigger as well. You'll see later. Here I'm just placing the sunroof and, you know, all the external details, because what I really had to go on with this build mostly was the external details. So I tried to get them down as close to the build I was basing this on as I could. And it's not that I didn't want it to be somewhat original, but the like idea for me here was to challenge myself to get it as close to the like source material, I suppose, as I could. And you know, it still ended up being pretty original, again, because I didn't have much to go on. I didn't have a blueprint or anything, but you know, I think it ended up pretty alright. So here we're just trying to like furnish the entranceway. As I said, I did end up making it bigger because it was quite a small space for what I wanted, and also in comparison to the original. But I'm trying to add like some Moroccan style furniture, and I'm trying to give it some warmth. You know, I really wanted this room to have a lot of warmth. I wanted this to like carry a lot of the essence of the house, because it's the first thing you see even before you enter. And even though I did end up making a lot of changes to this room, you know, making it bigger and everything, I think the essence of it still stayed the same, or maybe it's just because the like main furniture stayed the same, the placement of it at least. And part of why I wanted the Moroccan style to be, you know, more present in this room is because, like, when you look at it from the outside, it has some cohesion with the architecture outside, you know, with the spandrels and everything. And that's also why the lanterns outside also are, you know, in cohesion with that. Now here we're trying to, or I'm trying to set up, you know, the rooftop, and you can see it didn't really work because the game now considers it a room. And that's part of the challenge with, you know, flat roofs, because like you're not actually using the roofing tool for that. You can only like just set up, you know, small walls to mark off what is the roof, I suppose. So that's why I'm leaving it very open-ended here. And here you can see I have made the entranceway bigger. In order to do that, I had to move these like side parts of the house, in lack of better words, a bit away. And in doing so, I accidentally moved them to the second floor, even though there is no other floor beneath them. So yeah, I'm not sure how that would have worked in the real world, you know, complete dispense of physics, I guess. But, you know, it is a game, so it doesn't really matter in the end. Now, I'm starting to work a bit on the outside or the exterior of the house. I had a bit of trouble, like, finding the right windows, because, you know, you want the heights to match, and I wanted, you know, the, what can you say, the inner part of, like, the house, the one that, the part of the house that faces the garden, I wanted that to be very open, get a lot of light in, and then I wanted the outside, the part of the house that faces, you know, the public, I wanted that to be more closed off, so you have a lot of privacy with without, you know, giving up on having a lot of light entering the house, just only from one side. And part of why I wanted the side facing the public to be more private is that while it is a modern villa, I wanted it to also have some Islamic style in its architecture, what I call Moroccan style really, and I wanted it to fit with the simmers I created for the house. Notice here, by the way, my struggle to make the stairs fit and function. Sometimes the game is just a bit wonky. Of course, figured out a solution, but yeah, it was a struggle. Anyway, so the simmers I've created for this house are a Muslim couple who have a dog and a cat, but no kids. And as you will see later, I have created absolutely no children's rooms because they don't have any children. And for the wife, I wanted her to, at least in theory, be able to walk around her own home without a hijab, at least when there aren't any guests. But as this is The Sims, I have really just created all her outfits except her sleeping outfit to contain hair covering. This was also part of what made this a challenge for me, because I normally create simple Eurocentric houses because I am Danish, and so my builds and my simmers tend to reflect my own background a lot. So this gave me a good opportunity to look at architecture and builds from a different perspective and consider some different needs in my build. This build is also a result of me asking a friend what his dream home would be like. This friend is also an architect, so I figured he cares about houses and would have some good ideas for me to build from. And it has honestly been a good challenge for me to work from. So homie, you know who you are. If you're actually seeing this, thank you. This was very nice. It gave me a good challenge. And, you know, I think I will also be asking more of my friends to show me their dream homes and houses moving forward, because I think it's nice to have some outside perspective, you know, from my own, and to challenge, you know, my comfort zone. Especially if you, like me, would actually like to have a diverse world in your game. I think it's very easy to just create simmers of various colors and ethnicities and with various styles and just think that's that, but I think we should take it a step further and actually, you know, see what other perspectives are out there, because I think it could really broaden our horizon a lot. Also, right now, as you can see, I'm building, I would not say inside, but sort of inside spring. This is, to me, really the pearl of this build. It is part of what I could see in the original, or the source material, so to speak, the inspiration house, and I think I got pretty close, despite it being, you know, kind of special, like a little unique, I think anyway that it was. So I think it's kind of cool that I was able to recreate it to some degree in The Sims. I did not think I would be able to, so I'm a little proud of that, even though that's not really, you know, to my credit. I did not build the game after all, so the credit really should go to the designers and developers of the game. However, as you can see here, I did struggle a bit to find the right trees and bushes for this little plant area. I mean, I really hope we get more trees and bushes in the future, because it is honestly an overlooked part of building a nice house. I mean, there is a reason why little Simsy always adds a tree or two at the end of her build when she's looking at it and it's like, it's missing something, and then she just adds a tree or two and then suddenly it's complete. Now, this space here I struggled with a bit because from the source material I was not entirely sure what was supposed to be here. All I knew was that there was supposed to be some seating in this area and then an indoor swimming pool in another. Here I am starting to set up the indoor swimming pool and what looked to me like some saunas in the far end of the room, from the source material at least. I also wanted there to be a proper big bathroom down here to go with the swimming pool and so on. A good addition to this area, I think, would probably be some massage chairs and benches, and then, you know, you just have your own home spa in the basement. Ideal, really. I think a lot of people would like to have their own home spa, but you would probably need to hire outside help for the massage and so on. But if you can afford a house like this, then you can probably also afford to hire a masseuse for an hour a week or something. Which reminds me that I really should consider finding a professional masseuse somewhere. I mean, I am an old woman. I have aches. And I could really use a good massager about now. So here I am just setting up a room for a sauna and a room for a bubble bath. I generally wanted to keep the downstairs pretty minimalistic and clean, both because that was how the original was designed, but also because I felt like that was more befitting of the home spa vibes. But I wasn't entirely sure how to set up this room or these rooms, so I set up some lights, you'll see in a moment, and then I just decided to come back to it later and move on to some of the other parts of the house. Also, these tiny simple overhead lights that we all use, like honestly all of us, when you're not sure what else to use, they're just lifesavers. Like sometimes simple is just better. Now we're moving on to the outside pool area and the deck. I suppose that is a deck or terrace. In Danish it's terrasse. I'm not sure what you guys call it. Maybe I should Google translate that, but I don't wanna. I really like these planters. I think that's kind of fitting for the vibe. You know, it fits well with the Moroccan style or the Islamic style. Here I am just preparing the setup for the half roof, in lack of better words, using the same columns as earlier. I had considered using some different columns that were more simple and more in line with the design of the house I'm basing my build on, but I figured it was better to aim for some continuity. So these small details like columns, doors, archways, and some of the furniture is really what ties things together and elevates the build from being just another modern house, I think. By the way, I really hope my voiceover doesn't sound too choppy. I am recording this as like small pieces here and there, because otherwise I will have to go most of the time, because I'm not used to making voiceovers. This is entirely new for me. So in order to keep the filler sounds like to a minimum and not stumble over each and every word, I am recording the voiceover in bits. I am also trying to write small scripts as I go along, so I have a sense of what to say. And these spandrels that I'm placing right now did end up getting removed. I couldn't really decide whether or not I should go for spandrels or not on the half roof. I liked the idea of it, and I think it tied together well with, the columns and, the entrance part of the house. However, I asked my friend and he said no spandrels. Basically, because the roof, or the half roof, is pretty low, the spandrels are a no-go. And, you know, now that I look at it, the spandrels also would have defeated the purpose of the big windows, as they would kind of block the light from getting in. So I think it was a good decision in the end. And as you could see before, I placed some windows from the Courtyard Oasis kit in the front of the house. These windows, they provide some light and they do, you know, give you some vision. However, they do seem more privacy friendly to me, which is, you know, why I figured they would be a better fit to the parts of the house that face the public. Also, when I talk about Moroccan style furniture, etc., I am really just talking about that kit, the Courtyard Oasis kit, because when I have heard others talk about it, they speak of it as Moroccan style. Although I don't think it's completely fitting to call it a Moroccan style. I think it's more correct to say Islamic style. Correct me if I'm wrong, of course. I just think this style and design is very much in line with the Moorish designs in Spain, for example. So it's not just a Moroccan style, it's not just a Moroccan architecture or style of furniture. And for reference, my mother lives in the south of Spain and she once took me to visit Alhambra, which is, you know, a beautiful palace from the Moorish times with a huge garden. If you ever do visit southern Spain, like Malaga or Granada, it is definitely worth the trip to go visit one of these places. But I would urge anyone who goes to put on some nice walking shoes, especially if you're visiting Alhambra, because it's a giant place. So good, nice walking shoes and a pretty outfit, because you will want to take pictures. The place is gorgeous. And as you could just see before, I just placed a lot of hanging vines to cover part of the deck. This is again to give some privacy, but without closing the area off completely. And now, with the roofing almost sort of done, I'm moving to the pool itself, adding the details and decoration, as you can see here. And, you know, I really like these little pool beds. What are they called? Floaty McFloatings? I don't know what they're called. I just think they're neat, especially, you know, the pizza one. I ended up adding like a pizza slice floaty McFloating, in lack of better words. I am a little sad that I couldn't get the wall there to connect, but I suppose there's a good reason for that in-game. But visually it makes the area look a little bit unfinished, which I don't like. It's also a lot like, you know, with the roofing where the trim didn't connect, it showed earlier. I can't really do anything about that, so I hope y'all will forgive me for my small error. And here I'm setting up an outdoor fireplace that was also part of the design of the house I am basing this build on. I saw another simmer do something similar, and that it was functional, so it should work, but I have sadly not playtested this part. Also, the overhanging plants that we looked at earlier are not symmetrical by design. When it comes to plants, I like to avoid complete symmetry so it looks more natural, and this is why I have placed these overhanging plants just a little bit willy-nilly. Now, as you can see, I have begun working on the interior of the house, just placing objects here and there. Basically, I'm just getting parts of the layout down, so I will jump a bit around when doing this. You can see I'm putting down the layout of the kitchen, more or less. We will come back to this later. As for the layout of the house, I decided to split the house into a more private area and a more formal area. The area with the kitchen is then the more formal part of the house. So here there will also be a dining room, a tea room, a guest bathroom, and the hijabi room, which is a designated living space where the lady of the house can have her friends over and they can take their hijabs off without worrying about males in the house. And here I am just finishing up the outdoor fireplace, making sure that it is nice and neat. And again, back to the interior design. And as I said earlier, I think I said it earlier, I jump around a lot when doing the interior design. So sometimes I just place some key objects and then move on. I do this just to mark off the area so that I know what I want to do with it. And part of the reason for that is that I didn't, or at least with this house, I did not, build it all in one take. It took me a couple of days to finish. So I need to remember what my plans with the rooms are. But I also do it just to get my thoughts rolling on how I want to style the rooms. It is a lot easier in my experience when you're not working from an entirely blank canvas. However, as you can see here, I often start furnishing the bathrooms because they are just pretty simple. The space is usually smaller and you really just need to make sure that the essentials are in there. Toilet, sink, shower or bath, and then the rest is confetti. So after the ensuite bathroom, as you can see, I went back to the entrance. I already had some idea of what I wanted to do with the room. And, I was also pretty much halfway done before this, so I just needed to finish it. Here I focused on keeping the warmth of the room, wanting it to feel both homey but also very presentable. So it is the first room you enter after all, and as they say, first impressions matter. So I needed it to be warm and homey but also stylish. So I tried to keep it fairly clean in the design with just enough clutter to give the room some personality. But finding the right decorations can be a bit of a challenge. We have a lot of things, there's a lot of stuff, but at the same time there's not enough of stuff, like especially clutter items. We need more clutter items, more variations. You will find some decor that you just think is awesome and you need to use it somewhere, but it just doesn't fit the vibe. So there will often be like very few objects that really fit your vibe, or rather, fit the vibe of the design. So with larger houses, you most likely will end up using the same object several times in various rooms. Now we are almost done with the entrance. I think I later had to move things around because the dog got stuck. You can see here, yeah, the dog got stuck in between the chairs. Next up is the hijabi room. As you can see, I'm using the privacy screen here to add, obviously privacy, instead of just setting up a wall. I think it's a more elegant solution. Also just because it's rare that I actually get to use those little privacy screens there, and I really like them as objects. Also, the archway will have curtains, so there will be privacy, despite there being an archway and not a full-blown door. Here I really wanted to utilize the Courtyard Oasis kit furniture as centerpieces, deciding first on, the purple swatch, as you can see here. But because I wanted the curtains to match and the green and blue swatch just matched the room better based on the pattern, I ended up changing it. So as you can see in a moment, yeah, here it is. Curtains can be a bit challenging in The Sims because you often, you can only find a few that match the window size, first of all, and then also something that is in a nice style. It would be great if we could just have adjustable curtains so all the styles could fit all the windows. And also this room, as you can see, it's really both a tea room and a TV room. So the lady of the house, I think I named her Amina, she can have her besties over for a movie, or they can just sit and talk by the table. I'm using the candles here to give the room more warmth and comfort, make it more inviting. Really, I'm trying to give the room the essence of hygge, even though that is a very Danish concept. But, I think a room like this should have some hygge in the design. It should be hyggeligt, so to speak. And I think I managed to make this room fairly inviting and hyggeligt. Now I'm just placing, some plants and some art. I really like these, I don't know, flags? Are they flags? These like things that hang down. I think they go well, in a more Islamic inspired home. Now in a moment I will set up a bookshelf and a dresser. My thought was that the girls need a dresser to put their hijabs back on, and also that Amina would have extra scarves for the girls that need it in there. She is a generous woman, mashallah. I mean, it's not a trait that I've given her, though I think I made her good, but I can't really remember. Anyway, in a moment we will move to this little hallway here, which I used to make into a bit of a gallery, really, because there's not really that much space to do anything beyond just decorating it. And here these big square pictures from Get Famous really get to shine. And then on the other side here, I just wanted some side tables with some art and some clutter on them. I think it would be a bit much with such a small room to have like large pictures on both walls. Also, I really wanted to use these lights, which I think are from Dine Out, which we could see before when the walls were up. And here I run into the where's the good clutter problem. You'll see that I use some decorative pieces from various cultures all around the house, such as the lady on the table here. And that is because I imagined that this couple would be the types to travel a lot, with or without pets. And they like to bring home memorabilia from their travels around the world. So these pieces tie into their story as well, even though I did just create them just for this house. But I think making a story for your Sims can also give you something to work from when designing a house. And same thing goes for this little tea spot. I just thought they would be tea and coffee types, but also when I set up the base layout of the house, I had not really considered the full design of the kitchen. So it is somehow both big and small, so there's great space to cook, sure, but at the same time it is a weird long room with 2 archways, so fitting in a small breakfast table didn't really match. It could probably be possible, but it would just be weird, I think, in this room. Really, all I knew when I set up the layout was where I wanted the kitchen, and also the base idea that I told you earlier about a more formal and a more private space. And I really wanted the kitchen to be close to the side of the deck that had the dining table. Now we have moved to the small tea room that is an extension of the dining room. And I know it starts out very red, but it doesn't stay that way for long. My thought with this tea room is that you invite your guests to sit down and relax here before dinner is ready, or that this is the room you take your more formal guests to in general. Now, I know it is a weird small space, especially next to the large and spacious dining room, but the layout was set up after I'd placed the windows and doors to the outside, and the alternative was to have one big living and dining room, which I just didn't feel like for this build. So instead we ended up with this. And I think it still ended up pretty nicely. The tea room becomes a bit of a contrast to the dining room. Like, it's more colorful and warm compared to the dining room, which will have some color, but it will be much more minimalistic. Part of why it became so colorful was that I really wanted to use the furniture from the Paranormal Stuff Pack. It is a nice living room set, and the color scheme is pretty neat, I think. Really, when I was designing this room, it also made me think of a parrot. So, I just went with it. It is a parrot-inspired tea room now. And in the end, I think the room ends up being or looking pretty nice and inviting. It is small, cozy, and rich in color, but not in a way that murders the eyes. And the palm tree there really just is there because the room made me think of parrots, and so I wanted a palm tree. I did end up removing it because it's just too big for the space and also a little too bright with all the pre-existing brightness. I knew I wanted some plants and I wanted a bookcase in the room, so here I am trying to make that work. I didn't want, the space that we see here to be too cluttered up, but I also didn't want the walls to be completely bare. So I ended up moving the bookcase off towards the door besides the scratching post. And then I just gave the wall some decor that would take a little less space with a small plant in the corner. I really like that mirror that we use here. I think it goes well with the general design here. Next up is the small hallway to the guest bathroom. So it might seem a bit silly that I have 2 hallways that are, connected with each other but separate. But there is really, there is a point to it. And part of it is that this little hallway is also sort of a waiting space. You know, you go to a party and you have to wait for the bathroom. Yeah, there's space for that. So the energy is sort of different from the other small hallway. But also, I wanted the smaller hallway to be separate because I just think it looks better. Another thing is that it also, this little, you know, hallway here, it also becomes a miscellaneous space where you can just, you know, place the books you don't really read and where there's space for the cat tree. So it's also just, you know, a good space for the stuff you don't really know where else to put. Those are at least some of my thoughts behind this space. But, you know, despite it being a more miscellaneous space where you wait for the bathroom, I think it ended up looking pretty nice anyway. I also would have liked to use more clutter on this bookshelf, but I didn't want to reuse items too much. I say that now, but as you will see later, I will use the bookshelf again in another room. Now we are getting to the point where I remove the spandrels from the half roof, as you can see here. And something I sadly forgot to record is the little sitting area at the end of the deck, which we just got a glimpse of. I had to split the recordings up a lot because otherwise they will be super choppy, and so sometimes I would also just completely forget to hit record. Now you can see the roofing is pretty much done and it looks good. Or I think it looks good, you're free to disagree, but I think it ended up looking swell. And now just adding the pizza to the pool before we move on to the garden. Now, this part of the original design, I was not sure how to recreate properly, but I did my best, and I think it turned out alright. That's how it goes with most of this build, really. I did my best, and I think it turned out alright. But here you see I'm basically making a little sand path in a square. And then we have some trees here, and then there will be a small fire pit at the far end of the path. Also, this little spring that you see here at the far end of the little square here, I ended up putting that in the middle, you know, in the middle of that green square within the sand square. I just really like this object, so I just really wanted to include it somewhere. And now we're moving on to me creating a small flower patch. It isn't really part of the original design or setup, but I thought it was a bit lackluster without any flowers, you know, just grass everywhere. I thought this would give it a bit more life. And I'm adding a few stones to just give it some more realistic texture. However, I did not have the patience to do this diligently, so it just became just a few rocks towards the half wall. Basically, this becomes a corner dedicated to romantic garden stuff, but just a small corner, nothing big. I will have a bit of plants here and there in other parts of the garden, but this is the only like real flower patch like this. And I thought it would be nice, or would look nice, with, you know, some lights in the flower patch. And also I used the snowy escapes lights, I think it is, as lights in that little path. I know it doesn't really match the architecture, as it is more Japanese design, but I thought it still looked nice, so I didn't think it really conflicted with the rest of the design. And here I'm just adding lights to the pool as well. I mean, it's a pretty big garden and pool area, so I think that for such a big garden or outside space, you need to also add a bit of, or quite a lot of light. I'm using the big lantern tree from movie Hangout stuff because I just think it's, you know, nice with lanterns and a tree. It's cozy. And here we're just adding, you know, the last bits and pieces from the romantic garden pack, making it you know, a romantic corner. And now we're moving on to decorating, you know, the deck or the patio, whichever you call it. And I really think that this, you know, little detail here with the star or the tiles underneath the spring, just, you know, like really chef's kiss. It's just, it goes so well there. now we're setting up a little laundry space. Originally, I was making a laundry room on the first floor close to the bedroom, but I just thought it made much more sense to use the space in the basement that wasn't really being utilized anyway. And I, of course, added some decorations to make it look nice, so it didn't conflict too much with the spa vibes we have going on down here. And after this, we move on to the biggest bathroom in the house. You know, again, this basement got a full spa vibe, so you need big, nice bathroom down here too. Also, notice the toilet here. That is the toilet that has a bidet. I had completely forgotten prior to making this one or this bathroom that there was, a toilet with a bidet. So I ended up using this toilet in the other rooms as well because, of course, you need to use the bidet. Then we got the rest of our spa parlor, as we see here. In the original design, this space was pretty dark, sleek, and minimalistic, so that is the vibe I'm trying to recreate here as well. I know the space seems a bit cold and empty right now, but it gets better. Even just adding, a darker floor tile, as I just did here, I think that gives the room a lot more warmth compared to before. However, I did end up changing it to a more somber, brownish color, as you see right there. And then we got the pool areas that need some lights. I also will be adding some candles, you'll see in a moment, to the floor at the far end right now. And I think this gives the space some more warmth, really. And I know I talk a lot about adding warmth to the space, and I don't know if it's a Scandinavian thing, but all living spaces must have warmth, even aesthetically, just, for me to be pleased with the space. And otherwise I find it uninviting and uninhabitable. And now it was time for the indoor pools to embrace the dark side. So here I'm just going to be adding some very dark tile to all of them, because I wanted it to be dark. Preferably also the water, but that was not really possible. And I really wanted to use these lights somewhere in the build because, they're both decorative and functional and very modern as well. And I feel like I rarely get to use this light. And since this space was pretty minimalist and modern, I felt like it suited the room well. This sauna, however, I felt like it really needed some candles, get that full spa feel in there. Now, this little lounge area was just too sparse in objects, but I also didn't want to crowd it with items. So instead, I focused on just getting some nice, preferably large art in there that could really give the space some personality and add to it without adding a lot of furniture. So I added, a little cozy music corner. And then after that, I tried to see whether or not I could fit some game items in there, since there was just so much empty space, but in the end I decided against it. There definitely was space for it, but I felt like it was in conflict with the rest of the room aesthetically, so in the end I just decided against it. After this, I switched out the toilets upstairs with the one with the bidet, and got to work on the guest bathroom. Now, it's a small space, so it doesn't really need that much, but without, some decorations, the room just seems unfinished. So I added, well, you can see, a few paintings, and I think I also added a dresser, because that was just the most fitting. A lot of the dressers have a tendency to be very bulky, but these dressers right here from Dream Home Decorator really are nice and sleek and slim, so they fit well within a small space. And it's better than a cabinet because they're super bulky. They are not slim, and what we needed was slim. Here I'm just adding some finishing touches to the kitchen, but it didn't really need that much. Just a bit of plants and a little bit of clutter. Really, that's it. And after this, we moved straight to the dining room, which needed a lot more because it's a big space with minimal of anything at this point. I wanted to keep this space fairly clean and spacious, but not to the point where it felt empty. So I wanted some shelving with some clutter items, plates in particular, but I also just, wanted some decorative pieces in there, of course. This shelving system from Dream Home Decorator was super handy for this, and it is also just a nice, simple, sleek, and modern design, so it fits well with the dining table. And it just has great space for various clutter items of different sizes. And as you can see here, I am really trying to make the most out of it, really filling up the space with all the items I can. Now, as the room is coming more and more together, I think you can all see what I mean when I say that the tea room and the dining room are in contrast with each other. Because while some color is added in some decorative items such as plants and, clutter and art, the furniture itself is kept to minimal color. I'm really going for black and white mostly. So in regards to warmth, I really kept the heat to a minimum in this room. But I think that, the decorative pieces, though minimal, are, really making up for it though. I think in general, the decorative pieces, the art, etc. gets more, room to shine in this minimal space. But also, the dining room is probably the most formal space in the whole build, which is something I associate with more restraint and less personality, so the room kinda reflects that as well. That is not to say that the room is without personality or that it is icy cold aesthetically, it's just more formal. But through the artwork, we do get some connection to the warmth of the tea room and some of, the color. The art is generally very warm, so that warms the room up a bit. I don't know if it's just me that has a thing with aesthetically warm versus aesthetically cold rooms. I doubt it anyway. I'm pretty sure that it's very normal to think about these things. And now we're just moving on to the bedroom, which I of course made way too big. I mean, do you need a bedroom this big normally? But did I make it smaller? No, I did not. And I was trying to make the wall at the far side of the room more interesting, make it more into like a focal point. As you will see, I'm trying various different things out, and I keep seeing other Sims builders make these amazing creative solutions to bedrooms, making them so much more interesting than I could even think of. But that's also just a general thing. People in the Sims community are honestly amazing when it comes to thinking outside the box to create the designs they have envisioned, regardless of whether or not the Sims team have actually created fitting items for it or not. People are really MacGyvering in The Sims. And here I'm just trying to see if I could make this bed into a sort of 4-poster bed with these lights. I know I use them a lot, but they are just really neat and hyggelig. But in the end, it just looked off. But I really wanted, to give the bed some sort of framing because I wanted to make it sort of a focal point in the room. And I think I managed nicely with the combination of mirrors and lanterns here. I know normally you would use side tables or something, but I thought those lanterns deserved more of a presence in general. Now I'm just setting up a dresser system. I probably had enough space to give them a full dressing room, but then I would have to change the layout of the space, and I just didn't want to do that really. I mean, it was sort of just laziness coming into it. But I also really like these dressers, even though they are a bit IKEA-ish, and yeah, I know they could, have functioned in a full dressing room. I think these dressers are good for that, but I actually do like using them also to display decor, so I didn't actually want to hide it away. And it might also just be my personal taste and thinking here, but I think it's nice to be able to see what clothing you have available to you from you get out of your bed. In fact, I actually have ADHD, and with that I also get a bit of an issue with object permanence. So if I hide things away and store them away, I will fully forget that the thing even exists in my reality. So I personally prefer open displays of clothing, at least with the things that you might want to wear the next day. Also, notice this side table here from the Paranormal Stuff pack. I think it goes really well with the vibe of the house, and it adds a nice little pop of color in a room that is otherwise rather somber. With a bedroom, I want the room to be pretty relaxing, and so I want mostly muted colors, but without a few pops of color here and there, it can easily look a little bit muddled with too many somber vibes. Now we're just fixing this little beautification station over here. I honestly rarely get to use these little dressing tables in my builds, but since there's so much space here, I thought it would be a nice addition. And our Amina is a creative girl who cares about aesthetics, so I imagine she likes to give herself some time to fix herself up in the morning. I probably should have added some light in the corner though, but oh well. I mean, you can all edit or add whatever lights you want if you download the build. But now most of the furniture of the bedroom is down, and I'm just adding the finishing touches such as rugs and decor. Again, I kept it pretty somber throughout the design of this room, so I wanted to add some art that gave a little bit of color but without being too loud. Next up are the offices of the couple. They have one each. The husband I wanted to be a businessman and the wife is an artist, so their offices are going to reflect that as well. These rooms can easily be rearranged into kids' rooms should the need arrive. But as this couple does not have any children, at least not at this point, I figured their offices would be good spaces to illustrate their respective personalities. So now we are setting up the husband's office, which I made more modern and sleek. It is a bit more cold color-wise, as I kept it fairly black and white. Also, we have a lot of straight and harsh angles in the furniture, but I think it is softened up a bit with the curtains and the decor. The decor was really what I used as a good opportunity for me to give the husband some more personality. So there are bags of money because he loves money. There are car models, and there are objects from Star Wars, and just a few plants to give the space some life. And as for wall art, I focused on degrees and diplomas as well as those framed articles, as you'll see soon, because I imagine him to be a person who is very proud of his accomplishments. And it took a while to find all the objects, especially the car models. I don't know why they were so difficult to find. Maybe it was because I had hidden objects on, so there was a lot more stuff to sift through. But I think at this point I thought the cars were hiding within the hidden objects. But I found them, so all is good. I think actually we could use, a lot more, and probably some nicer car models for decor. By the way, I think I have used the elephant bookstand about 3 or 4 times in this build, but it's just because it's nice clutter and we don't have enough clutter. I would honestly embrace a kit that was just 30 new items of nice clutter. Like, it would be amazing. I want more clutter. Give me more clutter. Now you can see I am adding diplomas and art as the last fixes for this room before moving to the other office. I also added a bed for the dog in this room, as I imagined the dog was more his pet and the cat was more hers. The cat was probably also her mahar. I mean, it's a Bengal, and Bengal cats are expensive, so it's not a stingy dowry. Now, the wife's office will contain various creative tools, as I figured she would be a multi-talented creative woman. So, we have easels, cameras, and a digital drawing board, of course. And in this room I'm using slightly softer light and more colors, but way less clutter objects. And now I will just be placing the doggo bed, after which I thought I would place a little bed for the cat in the wife's office, but cats will take space pretty much anywhere, like they'll sleep anywhere, and there was already a sofa, so I knew the cat bed would not really be used by the cat anyway, so I removed it again. And then I finish off the wife's office with some art, a plant, and some curtains, after which I paint one wall a slightly minty green. You'll see in a moment. I thought this minty green was a nice contrast to the purples in the room, and also it matches the middle pillow on the sofa. Now I'm beginning to work on the main living room. This space is a lot less formal than the other living spaces, and I thought it would be useful for having, good friends over for movies or board games, although in The Sims we don't really have board games. We do have card games, but it's not really the same. With card games and other tabletop games in The Sims, it's a whole table object rather than various games you can use by a table and store away on a shelf. But who knows, maybe that will change in the future. The most important thing for me in this room was that I wanted there to be a good TV space. But as you can see, I did forego the, whole movie theater thing in order to just center the sofa and TV setup more in the room. And then I am adding a bubble pipe or a bubble bar, which is a lot like a hookah in real life. But before anyone says that this is haram, I just want to remind you that there's no such thing as cancer in The Sims, nor are there cigarettes or drugs. So allow our Sims to have some fun with their friends around the bubbles. And then we are moving on to some decorations, and wow, I have really used that painting a lot in this build. I think this is the third time I'm using it in this house. It's just a nice painting, what can I say? I mean... Also, notice and appreciate my struggle with scavenging for nice rocks here. There are a lot of good rocks in The Sims, I think, but often you run into the issue of either the color isn't quite fitting or the size is off in comparison to the objects you're placing it under, or when you then need to add 3 of them, like I do here, they also have to match each other to some degree. So I ended up going for some pretty muted colors so they wouldn't clash too much with each other, fighting for attention. And in a moment you will see that I tried to set up a small kitchenette because I thought it would be nice, if you didn't have to go all the way to the kitchen to get some popcorn for your movies. But I quickly disposed of that idea. I thought it made the space look more like a common room in a college dorm, which is so not the vibe I was going for. Essentially, it makes the space look a little cheap. And I wanted the house to have some sense of luxury, really, so that small detail just completely clashed with the whole house, really. Instead, I just set up some big movie posters. I also tried to see if I could fit some decor items that looked like they could refer to some movies, but it just didn't look good and made the space seem just a little bit too gimmicky. Now you can see I am setting up some bookshelves. In my head, the story I had in mind was that this is where they would have all their board games, and I'm friends with a married couple that have a huge bookcase just filled with board games in, I think it's their dining space. And these are just rigorously used whenever they invite, their friends over. So that was sort of the vibe I was trying to add here. I did end up changing the bookcases for the shelving system from Dream Home Decorator, as you will see just here. I thought this shelving system fit better in the room aesthetically, as it's more modern, essentially. And it also has better space for various clutter items. The items I'm adding here are ones I thought were more playful, so more, suitable for a bookcase you would also have board games in. And I thought it would also just frame the space better as a less formal, more sociable space that invites for more leisure and fun. Basically, I wanted to really indicate through the interior design in the various spaces what, the various rooms were to be used for. It is a really big house for just 2 Sims, and I wanted to make sure that the various spaces had some concrete purpose. I am pretty curious now as to what the actual floor plan of the original house was and how I could have decorated it differently. And I removed these windows because they just seemed excessive. This room exists just as an entrance to the stairway to the basement anyway. And now I am just adding the last few touches to the exterior. The front really needed some plants in order to look finished. And I'm adding trees and flowers in patches the same way as I thought it looked, in the surrounding area, because I really wanted it to fit in. Also because I just think it makes it look more natural in the space that the house is placed in. But yeah, that is pretty much the build. I had a lot of fun with it, and it was a solid challenge. I mean, I really got out of my comfort zone with this one. If you have any suggestions for what I should try next, whether it be an existing house or just a rough idea, let me know. I am open to challenges. I think it's fun, so yeah. So now, if you want to find it on the gallery, just find Found Faustus and then find the modern villa. I could have given it a better name, I could have, but this is what we ended up with. And now I'll just finish off by showing you some stills and some vids showcasing the final product.